Yo, so back in like 2021, end of 21, early 22, I want to say, right? There was a whole big war on Rikers Island. And in the midst of one of those wars was the apes and the blazers. Crazy. Somehow, some way, little old me end up getting caught up in some shit on Rikers Island in the middle of one of these conflicts between these gang wars, right? Now, if you ever been on Rikers Island, you know the way they divide the housing units up is usually like either north side, west side, or A side, B side. However they go, they split the housing units up, and it's usually like one side sharing like a center control area known as the bubble, where the officers are stationed at, and that's the control panel, how they operate the housing units. They'll open up the cells or whatever from this control area, which is called the bubble. So now the bubble is the center of the housing unit, and you may have an east wing or a west wing, or vice versa, or south side and the north side, or however they decide to label that shit, however it goes. So anyway, I'm on Rikers Island, 2021, right? It's a conflict between the apes and the blazers. I'm neutral. I'm Muslim. I ain't got nothing to do with none of this gang stuff that's going on inside of here. I'm just in here trying to fight my case, maybe make me a few dollars or whatever is going on. I'm jailing at the time. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm dealing with people on both sides in my housing unit, which at the time was technically at this time was supposed to have been a Muslim house, a Muslim unit. But for whatever reason, not gonna get into too many details, they had a couple of gang members in this housing unit with us at this time. I'm not gonna say they was reject niggas, but they was dudes that couldn't live amongst their peers at the time. They couldn't live in these other housing units with their gangs or with other gangs for whatever reason their reasons was. I didn't care, long as they wasn't rats or homosexuals or nothing like that, where they had to live in a housing unit with me, or I was living with them, or vice versa. So none of that happened to be the case at that time. So whatever they was going through with their gangs or whatever, and they couldn't live amongst their gangs, and they was in exile, and they was living amongst us, the Muslims at this time, then the people, the opposite gang in the next housing unit, which was the apes, because these was a couple of blazers that ended up in the house with me. Now, next door to us was the apes, was they rifles at the time. Why did all of this happen? Why did they allow these three, four, two, three, whatever, however many was, these handful of blazers to come in this housing unit and disturb the peace and the order that we already had? Was out of my control, was out of my, I didn't even really care at this time. It didn't even really matter to me. I had nothing to do with whatever their conflict was. So it really didn't matter to me. It didn't bother me that they was living amongst us, or I was living amongst them, or however you want to look at it. But however, the apes, which was next door, was also, I was cool with a lot of them guys, and I had relationships and business dealings or whatever I was doing with them, I was dealing with them. And on this particular day, right, I was on the bridge at the bubble talking to one or two of the apes or whatever the case may be. Not naming no names or none of that, but if you know, you know. If you was there, you was there, and if it was you, and you know, we was chopping it up, and we was just chopping it up regular, whatever it was regular. And however, as I'm standing there, some shit out of a movie happens right before my eyes. All I see is a bunch of inmates with, not gonna say bandanas, but like shirts, homemade bandana style, like shirts and shiesties and stuff like that wrapped around their face. Everybody was masked up and they armed up. So I'm looking through the gate and through the glass or whatever at the incident transpiring in front of me as I'm having a conversation with somebody. I'm noticing that damn near like the whole house is invading the bubble. Their house, the housing unit that I'm looking at, not my housing unit, the next house over, they're invading the bubble, whooping the police out. I'm sitting there cracking up, but at the same time, I'm like, yo, I got to get off the bridge and get through the gate and get back into my unit. So as I'm trying to sit here and figure this out, and I'm watching this unfold, they beating the police up, they beating the CEOs up. I see weapons everywhere. I'm just like, oh, let me get through this gate and get on my side before the squad come up in here and the turtles come up in here and they bum rush this house. But before I could even make it to my cell, I just realized that the gates was opening and like these guys are opening these gates. Like the inmates is in the bubble. So I ain't asking no questions. I immediately beeline through the gate. So as I'm going through the gate and I'm walking through, I start going towards the back of the housing unit towards my cell. And I was in the last cell. So it's a whole bunch of people running past me, like trying to get past me, and they trying to get away because these guys are now invading my housing unit. They bum rushing my housing unit, and they attacking people. They already attacked the COs in the bubble, and now they're attacking the inmates on my side. These opposite gang members who they had beef with, they rivals at the time. So now people are getting slashed. It's the whole full-fledged riot now. Their housing unit is now inside of my unit. Crazy shit out of a movie, man. So they end up chasing one of these guys. I end up making it to my cell, all the way down the tier in my cell, out the way. I ain't got nothing to do with whatever's happening on this tier right now. It's going down though. They out there, they fighting, they stabbing, they cutting, it's going down. These guys are opening people's cells. Guys is running, trying to hide inside the cells. They running in cells, and they chopping dudes down. I'm not even gonna hold you. The agents getting busy. So now I'm in my cell. It's a particular person. I'm not gonna say his name or nothing, but he runs in my cell. They chase him inside of my cell. He's trying to hold the gate so they can't get in. I'm standing there like, oh my God, what's going on, man? So now this guy's in my cell. He's panicking. He's scared to death. They're outside of my gate. Me and him is in the cell together. They're trying to get inside. So now I'm like, hold on. I gotta prepare myself to defend myself because if these guys get inside the cell, I don't know what's about to happen. I don't know how this is gonna turn out. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. But they get in the cell. When they get inside of the cell, immediately I just hear certain people saying, don't mind, not him, he good, don't touch him. They not thinking about me. I'm not on their menu. So they attacking this other person now. He's in my cell. Am I obligated to help this man? I'm in my cell. He's a gang member that has a beef with these other gangs, right? He ran in my cell, running his cell. He ran in here. Why? And he had a weapon on him. So now they whooping his ass, chopping him down, blood everywhere in my cell. I get out of these out the cell. I walk right past them niggas. Walks right past the whole everything. Walks out my cell. Now I'm on the tear. They still doing whatever they doing inside of my cell, but I'm kind of now going crazy. Like, yo, y'all wildin'. There's blood all over my property, everything, my clothes, my food, y'all bugging. Get this out my cell. But how am I going to tell the whole housing unit full of angry gangbangers with weapons and Pooh Shiesty masks on to get out of my cell and the commission of whatever they doing, they handling their business? So anyway, incident unfolds, squad comes, takes people out. People go to medical. Some people go to intake. I know the procedure in jail when something like this happens. So now the COs, they trying to figure out what's happened. But they watching the cameras, so there's not really much to figure out. They see what happened. It's on camera. There's cameras everywhere on Rikers Island. So now I guess they trying to figure out a way to cover this up or how they gonna hide the fact that these inmates, a whole group of inmates, invaded a bubble, a control unit, beat the COs up, took their keys, took their weapon, their mace and all that other stuff that they had, disarmed them, had them in a bubble, scared to death, not able to do anything, not even able to push the button or call for backup because these dudes already took they devices to do that. So now they got to justify how did another housing unit come inside of this housing unit and was in there for probably about 30 minutes assaulting people. This was crazy. This really happened. So now, while the officers in the jail is doing their investigation, obviously the inmates is doing their own investigation because everybody's trying to figure out how did this just happen and why. Well, it became obvious because they wanted their enemies. They was willing to go above and beyond to get these guys that they wanted. And they did that. But in the midst of all of this happening, it made me look like because nobody could figure out how did this happen. So on the inmate side of things, it made me look like, did I line this up just now? Because this guy was just on the bridge by the bubble talking to these guys. And then 5 seconds later, these guys blitzed the housing unit and started attacking people. So it's looking like I lined it up from the inmate point of view. I don't know really how to CO point of view, how it looked or whatever. I don't know what they thought. I never asked them. I wasn't a part of their investigation. But however, from the inmate point of view, I had conversations with my house and, they wanted to know what role I played in that. I didn't play a role in that at all. I was innocent in that whole thing. But it was people in the housing unit that felt different. They felt like I lined that up. They felt like I knew that it was about to happen. Or vice versa, or when it happened, I could have warned them, or I should have warned them. I didn't know. It was no time for no warning. It was none of that. I was genuinely like innocent in that whole situation. But however, the next day, dudes in my housing unit decide to move on me. I get into an altercation. I end up getting stabbed 7 times with a homemade ice pick in jail on Rikers Island. Yeah, they picked me down in that house behind that. Yeah, they thought I lined that up and all that. I ain't do that. I ain't had nothing to do with that. Well, but that's how I got stabbed 7 times with an ice pick on Rikers Island. I left that housing unit bleeding with 7 holes in it. I ain't never told on nobody. I held it down. Yeah, I'm on the internet now and I'm telling this story or whatever the case may be because all litigations and everything that was involved in that situation is over, it's finalizing. Any misbehavior reports, my name is not on none of them. I ain't telling nobody and then I ain't telling on nobody now. So however, with that being said, that's y'all story on how I got stabbed 7 times on Rikers Island. And I got many more stories. We're going to get to it. I'm going to keep y'all posted. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, Livewire TV. Let's go. Let's get it.